Hey everyone, Brian Von Vea here, back at it again with another beautiful story. This time we've got DM suggests I take a multi-class that doesn't mix with my character and then reads the rules incorrectly and argues with 80 plus people, then blames me. But before we get into today's video, let's talk about our sponsor, Campfire Blaze. Are you a storyteller with organizational habits that make you look like the next breakout star of Hoarders? With Campfire Blaze, you can be more organized than God is in Bruce Almighty. Campfire Blaze is a browser-based application with well over 80,000 storytellers signed up right now to their full suite of organizational tools to help keep their stories and world crisp and clean. Worried about safety? No problem. The manuscript module will store your project in the cloud, giving you rapid-fire access to quest details and other references so you never have to miss a beat. Create dynamic characters with the character module, weaving relationship webs to see how one character interacts with another, players included. Timelines are flexible and allow for custom campaigns that work for you, not against you. And never has it been easier to keep track of your beautiful world with maps, locations, species, magic system, cultures, and everything else you invent. And of course, your stories make a successful stealth save and stay private, but you can always share bits and pieces with your players and even collaborate them on the fly without spoilers, so they stay invested and excited. Did you know that Blaze also comes with 13 themes such as crime, western, fantasy, sci-fi, romance if you're into that cheesy bit of mushy stuff, and even spooky stuff like horror? Don't see one that you like though? Make your own by creating a custom theme that matches the story you're telling. New features come every month and it's free to use for those smaller projects. So you need more space, you say? Hey, you can get more for just 50 cents, only paying for what features and modules you need. Are you not satisfied? Campfire Blaze also comes with a 30-day return policy too. Now, like my good friends Daft Punk once said, better, harder, faster, stronger. That's how you can amp up your stories with Campfire Blaze. Check them out with the link in the description below. Now, back to the story. Session 1 of this campaign ended with my level 3 Bear Totem Barbarian reaching level 4 and finding a freaking OP magical great axe that did an insane 2d12 damage. Nice job. Which sounds broken, but the DM just made everyone OP and then gave every monster health until the fight was dramatic enough for them to die. I'm not criticizing this DM style, I had fun playing this way. The issue is what happened next. In later sessions, we find out that the axe belonged to the big bad evil guy, who used it to put a curse on the moon somehow, so it randomly does the Zelda Breath of the Wild blood moon thing and summons cursed demons when it turns red. The big bad evil guy died after that and has reincarnated now thousands of years later and wants to get his axe back. So the DM suggests my now mid-level barbarian character multi-class into either Hexblade or Eldritch Knight to bind the weapon to me, so the big bad evil guy can't get it back and return to his former world-ending level of power. I don't think you can say something is still a suggestion when the consequences for not doing it are the world you're playing in will likely end. And with this knowledge, my character would certainly rather take 3 levels in another class that nerfs him than risk the alternative. So I try to be a good sport about it and do my research on the feasibility of multi-classing into Hexblade or Eldritch Knight. Hexblade is a definite no, because as a level 7 Bear Totem Barbarian with a 2d12 axe, my entire character is built to be face to face with my enemies, tanking damage and raging. No spells I would get by level 3 Warlock would ever be even 1/10 as useful as my melee attack, and I would need to not be raging to cast them, so I would never use anything from the Hexblade class ever. Not to mention, I'd have to take 3 level ups with a d8 hit die, which being a Bear Totem Barbarian means 8 less health per level up. Eldritch Knight, on the other hand, is a fighter subclass, so my hit die would be a d10. I would get a fighting style, Second Wind, and Action Surge. Fighter and Barbarian multi-class works very well, so the only real wasted level would be level 3, wherein I go into Eldritch Knight. But I would still be able to bind 2 weapons to me to summon at will, get 2 wizard cantrips, and get 3 level 1 spells to pick. Once again, though I can't think of any way a barbarian with a 2d12 great axe is ever going to be casting spells during battle instead of raging and tanking, so I went on r/3d6 to ask for tips on how to make this build work, and they suggested that I focus on spells that would be useful out of combat and highlighted a few key options. Unfortunately, Eldritch Knight uses intelligence for spellcasting, which is my dump stat, so I am also further limited by spells that don't require an int roll, unless I want them to never work. So the options I went with were cantrips. Control flames. My character has dark vision and an alchemy jug, so between being able to put out torches so I can sneak around in the night and an infinite albeit slow source of oil, I figure this might come in handy. Mending. The world has a lot of islands to travel to, and even if mending only makes small repairs, that can be a huge benefit if something breaks while you're on a boat at sea. Also, I could cut locks or chains and then mend them to make it look like I was never there. And here is where the controversy began. Spells, 2 of which must come from the abjuration or evocation schools, and the third can be any wizard spell. Alarm gives us protection while we sleep and can be used to monitor an area after I leave it as long as I'm within a mile of it. Ideas that spring to mind were monitoring a safe house where we are hiding NPCs, or making sure no one is following us down a tunnel or something. Snare, just a magical snare trap. Could be good for keeping a single person slowed down, easy to get out of if anyone else is with you though, or giving a quick advantage at the start of combat if you can lure someone into one of them. There is no limit on how many you can set. Find Familiar, my wild card spell that can be from any wizard school of magic, and by far the most useful as there are a wide variety of familiars that can help in basically any environment, from underwater to in the air to in magical darkness. Owls have 120 feet dark vision, bats have blind sight, octopuses can grab things from underwater, and weasels have +5 stealth. And anything I can summon can check for traps or set them off or pick things up for me, take the help action in combat, or even trade senses with me when they go off exploring. So while Eldritch Knight is not a great multi-class for me, after about 5 hours of researching it, I'm feeling pretty good. This was my first campaign other than a couple one-shots, so I had to research every fighting style that fighters get, as well as every wizard cantrip and every level 1 spell. I really put a lot of effort into making it the best I could be, and was more or less happy with the penalty I was taking to protect the world from the big bad evil guy getting his weapon back. I tell my DM what I have planned, and he insists that all 3 first level spells the Eldritch Knight takes must be from the abjuration or evocation schools of magic, so I can't start with Find Familiar. I showed him the wiki where it says the first 2 spells, and that I get 3 spells total, but he said the wiki didn't mean that. So then I showed him a YouTube video explaining Eldritch Knight with 10,000 views, and he said he didn't trust that guy. So then I linked him to my r/3d6 topic asking for advice, and instead of believing the multiple people that posted on it, he decided to make his own comment on a day-old post saying what he believed the rules said, and told me, "Now we'll see." Because no one was going to see his comment and he wouldn't get the feedback he needed, I made a new post in r/3d6 asking for people to respond to his comment and help him understand the rules, and then went to bed. I woke up to him with karma in the hundreds of negatives because he had evidently dug in his heels and decided to argue with the entire internet despite everyone telling him he was wrong. Oh, this sounds fun. He was furious with me and told me I had disrespected and insulted him because I went on Reddit and got people to post mean comments to him. I told him I never said anything insulting about him, and I was on Reddit to ask them the best way to make the multi-class he made me take work, and that I had no control over what people would say to him if he decided to argue with everybody. Then he tried to say he was the DM and could homebrew the campaign any way he wants, and I told him that was absolutely 100% true. He could make a rule that the Eldritch Knight doesn't get any spells if he wanted, but we were having a disagreement about what was written in the rules, not how he wanted to run his campaign, and I was hoping he wouldn't homebrew Eldritch Knight to be even worse than it already was when mixed with Barbarian for no reason. He said I was ruining his campaign because I was happy everyone was being mean to him. I told him I actually asked Reddit to stop dislike bombing him when I saw he had decided to fight with everyone one, and that the real thing that was ruining his campaign was the fact that the Player's Handbook, a popular YouTube video, and 80+ people on Reddit could all tell him he made a minor mistake in the rulings, and instead of just saying, "Oh, my bad," or "Oh, well, I want to run it like this instead," he would argue with every one of them. And then he called me a cheater, because for levels 3 and 4 of the Barbarian, I had misread Reckless Attack where it said, "You must declare on your first attack," and assumed for there to be a first attack, that means I get a second attack when I attacked recklessly, and was making 2 attacks when I used Reckless Attack. It was an honest mistake and I felt horrible about it, and the DM responded by just offering to let me make an extra attack as my bonus action now that I was level 5. And I felt so bad I said that was too OP and I wouldn't take it. After him trying to take a low blow and guilt trip me over an honest mistake I made in the early levels, I still feel terrible about I decided to leave the server. And that is how my first campaign came to an end. How excellent roleplay ended my campaign. Now do note this comes with a trigger warning because it talks about suicide in it, so if you're not comfortable with that, please do not listen in. Skip to the end for some positivity and for the regular checkup. All the love, be safe out there. This is the story of how my first homebrew campaign came to an end. To be honest, it had been on life support for a while, with the cast of characters having gone through a revolving door of people leaving due to their jobs or quitting due to unsurmountable technical issues on their end. Eventually, only one of my players was still there from the start, and I wanted to continue the story or at least see it off to a satisfying point. If their story going forward seems like a mess, that's because it was the result of me trying desperately to pull together the splintered remnants of story arcs whose cores had left. Now, it should be noted, whenever I opened up the game on Roll20, I would put a bit of text underlined in bold. We're looking for fun characters, looking to have light-hearted adventures, because I felt it quite important to keep the tone light. I'm not a fan of grimdark or edge, and while I understand having some misfortune in life makes the story feel more real, I didn't want this shit to be Dark Souls. The party's greatest role player is playing a drunken monk who lost his wife in an accident, and whose daughter disappeared. The player basically told me that I was allowed to choose what happened to his daughter. I didn't mind tragedy in the background to motivate them, and most of their drunken antics were somewhat funny, so I didn't mind. So here's what I came up with, and to tie it into the pre-existing story. The monk's father-in-law was a retired archaeologist who defiled the sacred MacGuffin when he found it on a dig. Him and 2 colleagues had melted it down and smuggled it out of the dig site. In the process, their lines were cursed to suffer final destination accidents, which led to the monk's wife's death, and his daughter running away to try and lift the curse. One of those 2 colleagues managed to bypass the curse through lichdom, while the curse still ensured he would die often. It wouldn't truly matter if he kept coming back. And now he was evil overlord Grim Nasty. The third lost his possessions in a horrendous fire caused by the curse, and ended up gambling away the relic, leading it to come into the hands of the warlock, and the spirit bound to the relic to become his patron. So the grandfather's relic piece was buried with him in his ancestral burial mound, which the Lich villain wanted to get, but couldn't because it was warded against the undead and his summoned demons. So he gets creative. He tries to get the party to go in there and retrieve it. He orders his Rakshasa henchman to retrieve the in-laws piece. The Rakshasa disguises himself as the monk's long-lost daughter and delivers some exposition about the family's curse and how it works before leaving with the promise that she is going to follow up on a lead on the curse elsewhere, and if the party would be so kind as to keep an eye out for whatever got her family cursed. A few sessions later, the party successfully retrieves the piece from the mound and hands it over to the disguised Rakshasa, who accepts the relic with open arms and drops the illusion. He orders some minions to stall the party and villainously gloats at the PCs before teleporting out with the relic. And as we turn to end the session, I ask the players what they're planning to do next, so I can prep accordingly. And the monk's player speaks up. The monk is going to give in to his depression and commit suicide by drinking poison. Now, normally I respect RP and staying in character and making character-based decisions to your own deterrent. But this, I feel, is going a bit too far. So I try to talk the player out of it. But I can't because the player insists that having lost everything, their character would give in and poison themselves. I try to negotiate for failed suicide, dwarves are resistant, or divine intervention. But the player insists that if he fails, he will just try again until he succeeds. At this point, I gave up. The campaign's story had become an unmanageable mess, and even the lighthearted and fun tone that had kept me going had been destroyed. So I gave up, told the rest of the players that the campaign stopped being fun for me, and I ended the campaign there. Brian Von VA here, checking in after the vid as always. Make sure to check out our sponsor today, Campfire Blaze, especially if you're a DM or storyteller looking for an edge in keeping organized. And make sure to leave a like on the vid as well, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notified when we go live or upload. And if you'd like to submit a story yourself, then please head on over to r/Mr. Ripper. If you want to use a help action to help me get as big as Mr. Ripper here, then go on over to my YouTube, Brian Von VA, and leave a like, subscribe, and comment on any video that you'd like. Uncle Brian wants to give you guys and gals a much-needed virtual hug after that last story. Well, yes, it was in roleplay, of course. It sure still did hit home for some hard tones, am I right? Never be afraid to have dark moments in your stories, but as for real life, I never want any of you to fail that death save. No matter how bad life gets, there's always sunshine over the next hill and around the bend. It's not always easy to see, though, and that's not meant to be. And it's not always something you can dream of either. But believe me, it does exist. And all you have to do is keep on fighting until you get to see it. You're worth love and life and happiness and the freedom from all the pain that you carry inside and out. So from me to you, please never give up out there on yourselves, okay? All the love, be safe, stay hydrated, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.